From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
Well, good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, wooing the overseas consumer. How has Nevada joined the national movement to bring in more foreign travelers? And what big role is my guest playing in the effort? And he is my guest today, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Thanks for being here again.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. The U.S. Travel Association says increasing travel to the United States would be the most effective form of economic stimulus. Tourist-hungry Nevada certainly would benefit, and leaders like my guest are on board with efforts to make it happen. And today on Eye on Washington, we'll find out what's happening on the Hill and in the state to lure foreign travelers. We'll learn what the Nevada Commission on Tourism is doing to amp up its efforts to draw visitors from other countries. And we'll find out what Congressman Heck is doing to make it a whole lot easier and faster for those trying and waiting to get tourist visas. In September, the Nevada Commission on Tourism was rewarded for successful lobbying efforts with the Chinese. That work led to Nevada playing host to the semifinal round of the Miss Chinese Cosmos beauty pageant. According to media reports, the 18 contestants toured the state capitol, attended a Wild West shootout in Virginia City, and took a paddle wheel boat cruise on Lake Tahoe, among other activities. But 18 women likely will equal a whole lot more tourists to the Silver State. The commission was sure to capitalize on exposure, making sure that the contestants' 7-day visit was broadcast to viewers across China. Larry Friedman, head of the commission, told the Washington Post that the potential for increased Chinese visitors thanks to this effort was huge, saying, quote, "Part of it is the education for the Chinese of all that Nevada has." And my guest, Congressman Heck, says he's not only letting folks of other nations get to know what Nevada offers, but also to make it a whole lot easier for them to get here. He told the press in late September that foreign travelers are important to Nevada because they stay longer and spend more than their domestic counterparts. And Congressman, the facts back you up. The USTA says that international travel market is highly lucrative, with average spendings being 5 times higher than by domestic travelers.
Sure, and that's why we have to work so hard to get those folks to come back, especially to Nevada. And having the beauty pageant televised to 225 million Chinese certainly would go a long way in enticing them to want to come to the United States for a visit. Sure. But we've got to make sure they can get that tourist or business visa to come. And
we're going to give all the details of that bill in our next segment. I do want to say what you've said, and the reason behind that bill is you've really been focusing on the huge importance of foreign travelers to Nevada.
Sure, we have seen, especially in southern Nevada, how the gaming industry has tried to cater to foreign travelers. We look at what the casinos do during the season of Chinese New Year and how they redo their displays to try to lure more folks in. Sure. And we have a growing Asian population in southern Nevada. It's just a natural that more and more Asian travelers will want to come to the United States. And those foreign travelers are key, not just from China, but from India, from Brazil, from other countries that are facing similar obstacles for their business and tourist travelers to come visit Nevada and the United States.
You know, speaking of China, Brazil, and India, they are some nations that come to mind that are not struggling economically like our nation is. So again, you know, really focusing on those other nations that maybe their folks can afford to travel a little more than the folks here, correct?
Sure, and we know that when they do come, on average, they spend about $4,000 per trip, which is more than a domestic travel. Now, of course, we want everybody to come, domestic and international, but we have to capitalize on the international travel market.
You know, to follow up about those other nations, you know, while our gross domestic product grew just 3%, China's and India's, I have, each soared 10%. Brazil was up 7.5%. And so again, we will get into the details of the bill, but you've been pushing on the Hill. We've got to make it easier for those folks to get here.
Right. They have disposable income, and they want to spend it in the United States. We're still the #1 in Las Vegas is the top tourist destination for international travel. We've got to take down the obstacles and the roadblocks for those people with that income who want to come and spend it in our boutiques, in our casinos, in the hotels, at restaurants. We've got to get them to Southern Nevada to help stimulate our economy.
And we need it bad. I mean, when you consider Other than mining, which is such a bright spot, thank goodness, with gold prices, but otherwise, Nevada is mostly a tourism-driven economy. So doesn't that make your bill, which again, we'll get to the details next. People are like, well, what are the details? But it makes a bill like that to get those tourists here more easily. It makes it that much more important, doesn't it?
Oh, certainly. And it's a very easy and quick way to try to stimulate the economy, because these people are ready to travel now. They have the money now. They want to come. We've just got to open up the door to allow them to come and visit us.
Well, let's get to the next segment right after this, and we're going to give you the details of that bill to get those travelers here right after this.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Brought to you by the National Mining Association, the Frias Companies, Caesars Entertainment, NV Energy, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Western Lithium Corporation, and Skyline Restaurant and Casino.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Heads we go, tails we stay. A coin flip. That's how it all began for what is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Charlie Frias, with a can-do spirit and support of his loving wife Phyllis, bought ABC Union Cab in 1966. They then parlayed 5 cabs into a fleet of nearly 1,000. And today, Frias has over 2,000 employees and was recently voted Las Vegas's best company to work for. Frias, safe, reliable, simply the best.
How will new energy technology make our lives better? Will geothermal, wind, and solar energy be a bigger part of our future? Yes. And soon it will all be in our backyard. Learn more at nvenergy.com.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion on tourism and how to draw more foreign travelers to Nevada and to this nation. My guest today is trying to make that happen. He is Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Well, to spend money in Nevada, a foreign visitor needs to get there. It's a simple concept, but my guest says getting here is anything but simple. In fact, our congressman says he learned that waits for tourist visas at consulates in key markets can stretch to more than 100 days. And it was that finding that led him to introduce a bill in September that would cut the time it takes to get a tourist visa to 12 days. A visa is a document showing that a person is authorized to enter a certain territory subject to permission at the time of an entry by an immigration official. A tourism visa is for a limited time of leisure travel. Anyway, the State Department reportedly had pledged to reduce wait times for appointments to 30 days. But that wasn't fast enough for my guest, who says hard times equal a more urgent need than ever before to get those visitors to our shores and in our stores, or casinos, as the case may be. And he says his Welcoming Business Travelers and Tourists to America Act not only would simplify the application process, but also would lead to a huge increase in jobs in Nevada and elsewhere, as well as add $850 billion to the nation's economy. The U.S. Travel Association loves the bill. President and CEO Roger Dow says in the online publication Travel Pulse, quote, Congressman Heck recognizes the importance of aviation and tourism to our economy and competitiveness as a country. Congressman, 100 days versus 12. Tell us some more about this bill.
Big difference. And this all started, I attended the World Tourism and Traveling Conference that happened to be in Las Vegas back in May, and went to a roundtable discussion they had on obstacles to business travel to the United States. unaware of the problem until I sat in on the round table. And there were convention business personnel outlining the difficulties in trying to lure the business traveler and the convention traffic to the United States, stating that, you know, it could be months before somebody could even get an interview for the visa. And of course, you've got a business traveler who wants to come ship his goods to show at a convention. The time frame just didn't work. And you look at other countries like Germany, United Kingdom, they're getting visas in 2 weeks. So came back to Washington and said, look, we've got to fix this. It's critically important to Southern Nevada, realizing that if you can go somewhere else in 2 weeks and still have this worldwide exposure, we've got to beat that. And that's why we said, look, 12 days, State Department, we've got to issue these visas.
Sure. Well, I want to emphasize again, because, you know, we do these intros quickly or something. It would be almost a third of a year in the worst case scenario to half a month. I mean, that's...
Exactly, and you know, I make the analogy, it's like going to the department store where there's, you know, 10 checkout lines, but only 3 are open, and there's lines wrapped around the building. Well, it's the same thing is happening at our embassies and our consulates. We've got to have all the checkout lines open. We've got to make sure that there are visa technicians that are there ready to process applications. As opposed to it being a step up, most visa technicians start at State Department with an eye to becoming a Foreign Service officer, and so they don't stay there in that position for a long period of time. We need to look at new technologies like video conferencing to allow the interview to take place in countries where there's a very large geography for somebody to have to travel to a consulate for their interview, waiting 3-4 months for the interview with no guarantee of actually getting the visa.
You know, Rossi Rallencotter, the head of the Las Vegas Convention Visitors Authority, he's been on the show a few times to talk about the, you know, the Travel Promotion Act and other efforts that the state's convention visitors authorities, et cetera, has been making to get more foreign travelers to Nevada. And I am curious, what is the reaction of the state's convention visitors authorities and other travel and tourism officials in the state? I would think that you've met with them and they're pretty excited about this bill.
Yes, well, we worked with all interested parties in coming up with what we think is a very non-controversial bill. In fact, when we dropped it, we had bipartisan support in the form of co-sponsors. And certainly LVCVA is in support, the U.S. Travel Association, the aviation industry, the Retail Federation is in support, realizing that it's going to increase folks coming in the shop. So we have a broad coalition of folks that are in support of this legislation, realizing that the faster we can get somebody here and come spend a week, 2 weeks at a convention or on a vacation, it's more money into our economy. And some say, according to the Department of Commerce, it's potentially 1.3 billion jobs back into the United States.
You know, the Travel Promotion Act, it's sort of a companion to your bill. Your bill gets them here, whereas the Travel Promotion Act is a kind of a first time ever, a huge marketing effort to show what Nevada, or everywhere, but we'll say Nevada, all it has to offer, and it kind of excites them about traveling here. Your effort follows up on that and helps them get here,
right?
While excited.
The Travel Promotion Act concentrates on those countries that are already part of our visa waiver program. But yet there are huge countries like China, Brazil, India that are not part of that waiver program who still want to come. So we've got to give them an opportunity as well. And that's what this bill will do. Those countries not part of the visa waiver program, and it does it while still making sure that Homeland Security is protected, safeguards are in place, and that we're not opening our doors to those that come wishing to do us harm.
You mentioned, we all can relate to the 10 lanes and 3 open, et cetera. Well, speaking of that, you mentioned the lag time, the wait time. Does your bill provide any funding for the hiring of more consulate, more workers at consulate?
Well, what it does, it directs Department of State to decrease that wait time to 12 days, and then it's up to them to figure out how to do it. The State Department has the ability to charge a fee to those applying for the visa if necessary to cover the costs. But it leaves it to the State Department to figure out how they need to do it to bring it down to 12 days.
You mentioned, I mean, bipartisan support. Of course, I can't think of any group that would be in opposition. Is there any opposition to? We
have not heard from anyone in opposition to this piece of legislation. Again, it's fairly non-controversial. It safeguards our homeland while allowing those who wish to come and help bolster our economy come here in a much more expedited fashion.
Well, come on, House, let's get this going for Nevada. We're going to be right back with other efforts our congressman is making to improve the tourism outlook in Nevada. Stay with us.
Every day, thousands of people in northern Nevada don't get enough to eat. 1 out of 5 children in northern Nevada go to bed hungry every night. But you can do something about it. Catholic Community Services of Northern Nevada has been providing help and creating hope in our community for more than 65 years. By donating food, time, or money, you can make a difference in a hungry person's life. When you make your generous donation to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, you're helping to fight the scourge of hunger in Northern Nevada. In these tough economic times, now more than ever, we need to help those less fortunate. To find out how you can donate to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, call, click, or stop by, and together we can end hunger in Northern Nevada.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Heads we go, tails we stay. A coin flip. That's how it all began for what is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Charlie Frias, with a can-do spirit and support of his loving wife Phyllis, bought ABC Union Cab in 1966. They then parlayed 5 cabs into a fleet of nearly 1,000. And today, Frias has over 2,000 employees and was recently voted Las Vegas's best company to work for. Frias, safe, reliable, simply the best.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of tourism and efforts on the Hill and in the state to draw more foreign travelers to Nevada. We've been visiting with Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Well, let's look now at another tourism hat our Congressman Heck wears here on the Hill. It is his professor cap. Congressman Heck serves on both the Gaming Caucus and on the Travel and Tourism Caucus. We've told you before on Eye on Washington that caucuses exist to educate one's colleagues on issues important to the member and or his district. And these two caucuses are hugely important to Nevada. The mission of the Gaming Caucus is to educate fellow lawmakers on the importance of the gaming industry and the economy, or to the economy and to the thousands of people it employs. The Travel and Tourism Caucus, which I'll give a little more information on since it's our topic of the show today, it advocates for a strong tourism industry which affects obvious tourist centers like Nevada, but also is important to every state in the union. The caucus seeks to formulate national policy that promotes travel to and within the U.S. It was founded in 1979, largely because early members recognized the importance of travel and tourism within their community and the need for a congressional advocacy organization to support the industry in Congress. And Congressman, the economic benefit of travel and tourism extends to every state, not just those obvious draws like Las Vegas and Reno, doesn't it?
No, you're correct. I mean, every state has some travel or tourism industry. And so this legislation will certainly help increase travel across the United States. And so what does that do? Well, that certainly then increases the economy in those states, which then hopefully increases the domestic travel back to Las Vegas by putting more money in the pockets of our domestic travelers.
Well, and you know, we should emphasize, when you go to a casino and you're there spending money in the casino, but the casino, for instance, has a gift shop, and there's some other business that supplied the chewing gum. You're supporting so many other businesses by supporting tourism, aren't you? Oh,
certainly. We know that for every one person who works in the hospitality industry within Southern Nevada, there's probably 2 or 3 jobs out in the community that are generated because of that one person. and you look at all the other collateral industries that benefit, whether it's the taxi cab industries moving people up and down the Strip or from McCarran Airport to their hotels, the restaurants outside of the gaming establishments that see an increase in clientele when travel is up. So there's a lot of collateral benefit, not just to the gaming industry or to the hotel industry.
You know, at a time when Nevada's leading and also struggling rest of the country, but when Nevada's leading the way for jobs, you know, it reminds me of the importance of getting, for instance, those foreign travelers here, because when the hotel casino industry is struggling, those cab drivers are going to get less clients. Those dealers are going to be laid off, et cetera.
Sure, and we also see it trickled into our construction industry. You know, when we were building more and more hotels and we had a lot of construction workers moving into Las Vegas, you know, we had construction workers building homes for construction workers, and now we've seen that trail off. And so there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of benefit to far more than just those that work in the hospitality industry.
You know, I want to quickly give a couple fun facts from the travel and tourism. Tourism rates in the top 10 industries in 48 states and Washington, D.C. Tourism directly employs 7.4 million people and generates, are you ready? You know this, $1.4 billion every day. I mean, you're waiting for that to be every month. It's every day. So it's an amazing industry when you think about what it generates.
It is. It's incredible. And unfortunately, we've seen our share of the international market drop from about 17% to 12%. And so just being able to move us back up to where we were, hopefully far exceeding that, but just to get us back where we were, is 1.3 billion jobs and $860 billion into our economy.
What's next for your bill? What's
Well, we're waiting for a hearing. It's been referred to committee. It'll go to Foreign Affairs as well as Judiciary. Okay. And so we're waiting for our committee hearings to be able to tout the benefits of our bill to every one of the 50 states and hopefully get it out to the floor and then over to the Senate.
And you feel good about it?
We do. We've worked real hard with our colleagues in the House. We've also talked to folks already in the Senate. So we feel real good about being able to move this legislation. It's great for Nevada. It's great for America.
When it passes, not if, when it passes, when a bill passes, obviously, it takes a little time to see that come through, but it sounds like cutting those wait times, again, for as much as 100 days down to a couple of weeks, we really ought to see some benefits of this almost immediately.
Well, we would think so. I mean, obviously, the Department of State is taking notice that this piece of legislation is moving, and so they'll have to start preparing for its eventual passage and becoming law, and then putting on them the burden to truly start to streamline their processes while protecting safety and making sure that we can turn around those visas in 12 days.
Okay. We're going to have our mailbag segment right after this.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Built on a fleet of just 5 cabs bought in 1966 by founder Charlie Frias, Frias Transportation is now Nevada's largest transportation provider. Today, Frias has a fleet of nearly 1,000 vehicles and more than 2,000 employees. As an industry and community leader, Frias continues to create the future of transportation technology and management and actively supports the community, continuing the legacy of quality service in the Las Vegas Valley. Simply the best. Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And we're back with our closing segment of Eye on Washington. It is our mailbag segment, and in this segment we tell you about an issue that the Congressional Mailbag page of the Joyce Communication website is getting a lot of correspondence about. We read one of your letters on the air, and then we invite our guests to respond to you right here. And Congressman, I know this is a shock, but you've been getting a lot of mail about the economy.
Sure have.
A lot of folks have been getting a lot of mail about the economy. I have a letter here from Jacob M. of Sparks, and he says, "Dear Congressman Heck, you've stated that workers need certainty in an improving job market. How would you stabilize the job market when there are so many large economic issues unresolved in Congress?" How would you respond to Jacob?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, because we can try to provide that stability or create the conditions that will allow that stability. But until you address the underlying issues, and for us, I believe in Southern Nevada primarily, the number one issue is the housing crisis. We've got to get back to stabilizing the housing market as one of the biggest drivers of our economic difficulties in Southern Nevada. And so we've been working one-on-one with constituents to try to help them in their particular situation, but we're also drafting a couple pieces of legislation that will help the housing crisis. One piece that we were able to get into the National Defense Authorization Act is targeted at military members who are being told they have to move, time to change their duty location, but they find themselves upside down in their homes and unable to sell their home. And that's a big issue for military readiness, but we found that folks are saying, look, I just have to retire or leave the military and stay in this house because I can't afford to move from it. So we had a piece in the NDAA to help address that. Next, we're moving now to a piece that'll help the broader housing market in helping to get people back into homes. Somebody who may have lost their home, now they can't get a loan because of a bad credit mark. We've got to figure out ways to have those people get back into a home, drive down the big surplus of homes we have now, and that'll help everybody's property values come back up. So we've got to concentrate more on the housing situation.
Well, I'm sad we're out of time today, because I think when we have you on next time, we're going to have to talk about some of these broader housing issues. But thanks so much for being here today on the tourism thing. Good luck with that bill.
Thank you.
That does wrap up this week's Eye on Washington. And if you want to send a letter to one of Nevada's senators or House members yourselves, please go to our website, joycecommunications.com. Check out more federal issues that impact Nevada while you're there. Thanks for joining us on Eye on Washington today. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington. Good day.